You feel like as a writer and director that you have decided that you need to make a certain kind of film, that you want to sort of leave behind the broader comedies that you've spent your career doing, and this is what you want to focus on?
To some degree, it's true. I don't know if I'll ever make a broad absurdist comedy the way I've made them in the past, but I do love comedy and I love laughing. So there'll always be movies I'll do that'll have a sense of humor to it or be playful. But I think the conversation has just changed in our country. You know, there's a Supreme Court decision coming down, which they're pretty sure is going to wipe out public sector unions. I mean, this is a giant decision. My sister's in a teachers union. I mean, it's going to affect our country in a radical way. I'm seeing no real coverage of it in the mainstream press.
No.
It's one of the biggest decisions that's going to come down in the last 3 or 4 years, and yet there's no talk about it. So, you know, the question is, how do you address that? Suddenly those subjects where you're showing up on set every day and you're living in a story while you're making a movie become very exciting to me. Whether it's direct and overt or, you know, slightly off the subject. But, you know, that having been said, I've just told you this, and 6 months from now I could think of the funniest idea in the world and be like, the hell with it, I'm doing it. So you never know.
Yeah, but I mean, you do that. Like, what are some of the other, like, serious topics that you think you'd like to take on?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest one, I think it's, without exaggeration, the biggest story in the history of mankind, like us as upright apes, is climate change. I mean, I think it's literally an extinction level event. I've read all the science. I'm certainly a dubious guy who doesn't just take things at face value. I've talked to scientists. I just can't see how it's not 100% correct. And you're starting to see the change come, and it seems to be every estimate they have gets worse and worse. Like they keep saying, oh, it's 500 years away, and now it's 300 years, and now it's 200, and now they're saying Florida could be gone in 60 years, and it's the biggest story we'll ever confront. It's a hard one, though, because it is very scientific, it's very abstract, you have to imagine what's going to happen. It's a giant bummer. No one really wants to talk about it. So I'm kind of kicking that around. Is there a way to make a movie that's really alive? And then, you know, the other big one is the gun violence too, which,
How would you approach that?
Hard one, man. Well, I actually think Gus Van Sant made a masterpiece in Elephant.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it's like,
we should watch it again, actually.
Maybe his best movie ever. The reason we haven't been watching it again is it's hard to watch. Sort of like Larry Clark's Kids, like, is a brilliant movie, but after I saw it,
right? It's like it's too real almost.
I had to walk around the block after I saw it. It was so kind of devastating.
But you wouldn't have a take like that at all. I mean, you'd bring comedy. You'd have to.
Yeah, or certainly there's a way to focus on character and the emotion. I mean, maybe there's some funny moments, maybe not. But like, what's the way to do it without just making us all feel completely crappy and dark? Because you need some sort of like positive road that's at least hinted at.
Adam McKay, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.